Hello, everyone. We are here in Santa Monica, California on a beautiful day. Every day is beautiful here in LA, but it's even more beautiful today because it's the inaugural podcast of Ethnically Correct. Can we get a round of applause?
Yes.
I'm here with two amazing women who I've known for quite a long time, and they've left an indelible imprint in my life. And we decided a few weeks ago to get together and start this project called Ethnically Correct. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Let's start with Tehu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tehu Smythe, and I'm of Persian descent, originally from the UK. Been living in Los Angeles, returned to Los Angeles actually last year. I'm currently pursuing a degree in marriage and family therapy. I have an insatiable curiosity about human behavior. I'm very interested in working with people to increase their self-awareness and making a difference that will ultimately lead to a more enriching and fulfilling human experience. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be a part of this podcast, and I'm in good company. Thank you.
Awesome. Tehu and I met at the University of Southern California in 1999 in a political science class. She had very strong opinions. She was very passionate. And she took no prisoners when it came to voicing her opinion about world political leadership, about terrorism and genocide. And so I'm happy that she's with me throughout that she stayed in contact and that she came on this train called Ethnically Correct. And to my left, we have the wonderful Winter White. Winter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. My name is Winter White, like Alex said. And I wear many hats. Professionally, I am a corporate trainer for a hospital, and I am also a blogger. I'm a passionate person as well, very passionate about the things that I love. My blog is called Weekends with Winter, and it is where I discuss or I try to inspire people to live their weekend 7 days a week. So that might be via throwing parties, that might be via me going to parties and telling, the LA area, hey, there's this cool event going on, you should participate. Or it might just be, something that's on my heart that day that I write a blog post about. Everything is geared to making people inspired. And I'm really excited to be a part of this because I think it's just another outlet to talk about the things that are important to us as ethnic people growing in LA. And I'm excited. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much, Winter. Winter and I met when we worked together in an IT department, and we always had ruminations at lunchtime about pop culture. Winter White is an encyclopedia of all things pop culture. She knows every single actor, what they've been in, how many housewives, they've had, and how many surgeries, etc. And she
all the important things of life.
Pop culture queen.
Yes, especially here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And my name is Alex Venegas. I am of Mexican descent, born and raised here in Los Angeles. I went to the University of Southern California, got my degree there in political science and Spanish, and then pursued a master's in communication management at Annenberg West, because there's Annenberg East. And I decided that ethnic people need to have a stronger voice in media, because a lot of times we see depictions of folks of ethnic origin that might not be the best representations. I think we all have very distinctive voices, and we come from cultures that are rich in history, in practice, in living life to the fullest without any apologies. And we are unapologetic about who we are, and I think that's very important as we discuss the various topics. So we thank you for listening, for those courageous souls that are helping us pioneer this endeavor, pioneer this enterprise. And we want to inspire you to have these conversations with your family members, with your coworkers, to challenge one another and to really think deeply about what it means to be an American and what it means to be a member of a society, what it means to be a companion, a good coworker, what it means to have solidarity. I think one of the most important things, having grown up in a community of ethnic origin, is that there was a lot of solidarity. If somebody was downtrodden, if somebody had any kind of financial assistance, people would do bake sales, people would gather together and galvanize the community to help that one person that was down. And so I think that is the spirit that shrouds this space called ethnically correct, and we want to perpetuate that throughout the United States. We want people to have discussions, and all in the name of love and compassion. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
I absolutely would agree.
So we're going to divide this into 3 topics today, and we're going to start with a topic that Winter shared with us, and that is when you decide that you want to pursue your passion, when you decide that something that you've been doing for a very long time finally deserves more of your dedication and your passion and a time commitment, what steps do you take so that it, in the end, provides a financial reward that can help you subsist on a day-to-day basis? So, Winter, kick it off.
So, all this came about in my mind because of my blog. And I had been thinking about where I wanted my life to go, where I wanted my career to go after a particularly negative work experience. And it really got me to thinking, what am I passionate about? Growing up, I don't ever think I was really told to go toward your passions. Don't get me wrong. My mother instilled in me growing up that I should do what makes me happy, and she was always very supportive. I just kind of went through life doing what I thought I was supposed to do, which was college, which I didn't end up finishing. And then it was, you have to work. And I just worked whatever job, could pay me enough to live. And I never thought about what I was doing until, like I said, this particular job that I had ended negatively. And I started to really think about that. And now I am going towards my passions and building my blog. And, when I started out, I put more money into it than I started to gain. And that's probably still the case now. But the satisfaction that I get from growing and seeing other things grow outside of the monetary, when I've met people and they're like, I read your blog all the time, and they give me feedback that it's great, and they think that it's actually bigger than it is just because of the way it looks. And I'm like, I'm lucky if I get, over 5,000 views a month. And some of these big blogs are having like millions of views. So it's, it's that satisfaction for me right now. It's not as monetary. So that's why I wanted to kind of pose that question to you guys too. What is your passion? When did you figure it out? What pushes you? Because I know, Tehu, you're in family therapy and you probably deal with some really stressful situations.
I do, absolutely. For me, it took me a very long time to actually take a proactive approach in really discovering my passion. I had so many other interesting careers and things I was trying, but it was the lack of fulfillment which finally led me to where I am today, and kind of really knowing that ultimately I wanted to help people, but I just didn't know how. And I tried to do things to help people, but it was never enough because it wasn't deep enough. It wasn't profound enough. And my first degree was in psychology, but at that young age, I didn't feel like I was ready or prepared or had enough life experience to be able to add really any value to someone else's. I'd sort of a little bit older with, more years behind me now, I think, right, well, now I'm able to really kind of provide a meaningful and profound experience on an individual and, on a family or couple level, working with people therapeutically to make a positive difference in their lives. And that is my ultimate reward and fulfillment. It took me a very long time, and also the dedication and the commitment to actually obviously pursue a degree and then go through the licensing process. It's a lot of hours. It's 3,000 hours to complete everything. And there's very good reason for that, because you do need to spend a lot of time with people in sessions to really, really understand and appreciate the full dynamic of working with people on a very deep emotional level. But it took an extremely long time and a lot of, self-awareness, a lot of reflecting work to really discover. But the great news is once you discover what your passion is and you find it, you never look back. And I have absolutely no regrets. I'm not saying it's easy work sometimes. The commitment is hard work. But if you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter, because that's ultimately where you want to be.
I think for me, I discovered early on that I like to inspire people and I like to make them feel something when I emote, when I sing, when I deliver a speech, or whenever I share something about myself with other people that comes from the soul and from the heart. And of course, that came through church singing and through preaching and so forth. But for me, I decided that I could not make that my lifelong career because there were a lot of insecurities. I did not feel that I had the look to be a good singer, that I was very much tried, and I had a lot of internal strife about who I was as a male, as a person. And so I decided that I needed to, as you say, make ends meet through a wide collection of jobs, from administrative assistant to program manager to secretary, and now the work that I do in IT. But I think that I've gotten to a point where I am happy doing a 9 to 5 during the week, but during the weekends I get to fulfill that which makes me happy, which is evoking people. And the most important opportunities for me come when I sing at funerals. Having lost both mom and dad, I understand and I can empathize with people's pain. And people are so vulnerable, and every part of themselves is open when they are experiencing such deep emotions, when they are mourning, when they are really down. They're open vessels. And then what you do is you pour out of yourself, from your humanity, and you say, I know what you're going through. It's going to be tough. It never really ends. You just kind of have to basically arrive at a place of peace and understand that people are here as pilgrims, and that we go through this life and that eventually they're going to go. And that's my ministry, right? That's my opportunity to share and touch someone and say, I see you, I see your pain. But I knew that that was not going to be my form of major subsistence. But I think we make sacrifices, and then we get to a happy medium. At least in my case, and in other cases, then your profession does become your passion. And I want to say, in terms of ethnically correct, for me, growing up, my mom and dad, as good Mexican immigrants, they had a very precise idea of what it meant to be successful. So you were either a doctor or a lawyer or someone of esteem, and that was the highest degree of achievement. And I don't know for you, Winter, in the African American community, I'm not sure like what your role models were in terms of what you would measure as successful.
You know, it's really interesting that you asked me that. So my mom always instilled school. Everything was always about, definitely a big support. If I said I wanted to be a dancer, if I said I wanted to be a singer, an actress, she was supportive of all of that. And I think more so because of growing up in Los Angeles, and that being a very huge medium here, that was something that she supported. But on the flip side, my father's side of the family, they were all singers. So from that perspective, I was taught that was something that I should go toward. So whereas my mom is like school and whatever you feel you want to do, my dad was more like, you should sing. You're going to make more money doing that. In fact, I can remember a conversation where he was like, why do you want to go to college? And it stunned me because I'd never heard that before from my mom. Why do you want to go to college? You should sing. You can make tons of money doing that. And I was like, no, I want to go to college. That's what you do. And that was just, I can remember that clear as day. I was about 15 years old, and I never heard anybody say college was not the answer until that time. And I don't fault my father for that, but for him growing up, that's what he was taught. That's what success looked like, a singer, an entertainer. So
that's really interesting, Winter, because a lot of that's so interesting. That's been your experience because it's so positive. If I can offer a different perspective, actually, which is the complete opposite. So, being from a Persian family, which I am, success is completely measured by security, by financial security of a professional career, which it can pretty much be any of these four things: a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, or a business, some sort of a business. And anything outside of that just does not measure up to the culture at all. It has to be one of those four things, which is so unfortunate because I'm sure there's just as many talented people who would equally love to pursue their dreams in dance, music, arts. It is not encouraged by the parents. They are not supportive towards it because it's not deemed as a viable or a secure route, which can lead to a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So a lot of, Middle Eastern people do end up actually doing things that they settle for and compromise on. It's not their passion. They may look at it or do it on the side, but it won't be what they choose to do because it's really instilled from you that it needs to be something, really, really substantial. And for some reason, those kind of career choices are not viewed as substantial. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
So are we saying at some level that if I hear this conversation, because African American folks allow themselves to rest in that place of artistic expression as a legitimate way of subsistence, that we see the most passion from the African American community in general?
I never thought about it that way, but I can completely get behind that. I feel like artistically, and some people may disagree with me. I think that a lot of African American people, it's almost in our blood. I don't want to perpetuate a stereotype, but you get on the dance floor and we have the most rhythm sometimes.
And incredibly good at it.
Yeah. So
incredibly good
I think that that is very correct. Yeah.
And our society seems to also support that notion. We say, oh, okay, I think Michael Jackson was a good example of how our society embraced an artist and he could do no wrong even when he did wrong, right? In our minds, we wanted to right any kind of his wrongs. And even though we knew that he was deeply hurt because he had challenging family
an incredible, difficult childhood as well.
Yeah,
exactly. He was tainted by very formidable experiences. We still wanted to absolve him as a society because we were so enamored with his talent and with his artistic expression.
And you have to think back even to slavery. A lot of the ways that people got through that was through singing, was through gospel music and having that kind of community in the church. So, I think it's all connected in a way.
There's a lot of historical significance of how the African American community really expressed themselves through that medium for a very long time. In fact, one of the only mediums that they were allowed to express themselves through.
Right, exactly. And it actually opened other cultures up to welcoming us in their homes, whether it was through TV or, a club appearance. I think that was one of the ways that, white people kind of familiarized themselves with Black people or were open almost to the accepting of Black people is through what we do in the media, with music, with acting, with, so I think it's all connected.
Well, we want to take this opportunity to ask you out there as you listen to us to think back on your experiences and to ask yourself whether you are passionate about what you do. And if so, is that informed by your culture? Is it not informed by your culture? Are you pretty much the kind of person who is happy in general and lives day to day based on your own mores, etc.? Or if you have made some opportunity costs for your financial security and your stability. We welcome your thoughts, and we hope that this continues as a dialogue in your own right. So, on to the next topic. The next topic deals with values and our value system as a society. And, all of us here have been well ensconced in the Los Angeles culture and in Los Angeles life. And sometimes we don't necessarily realize the different things that are at play. But Tehu has a very interesting read on this because she recently came back from London, having lived in London for 10 years, and has reincorporated herself into Angelino society. And she's made some very interesting observations a la Alex de Tocqueville in the 1840s. So we definitely want to hear what she has to say.
So one of the things which has really struck me when I came back to Los Angeles is this idea of what are the kind of mainstream values that are particularly relevant to the culture of Los Angeles. And I'm talking about specifically the West LA, which has a lot of the entertainment people wanting to be involved actively. And I also came across this huge emphasis on, which has always been there, obviously, on just this notion of physical attractiveness, which really dictates the mainstream culture of Hollywood. And it's an ideal which everyone feels compelled to adhere to. And if they don't adhere to it, it leaves such a sense of insecurity and a lack of validation, which actually ends up perpetuating in this really negative cycle, which doesn't serve individuals very well. So it just really kind of brought up a few questions, which I wanted to put out there and see what others thought. I mean, what do you feel the judging criteria is on attractiveness and success? And do the core components of self and the individual uniqueness possess the qualities it once used to have? Or have we reevaluated them to shallower expectations of one another realistically? I mean, does it really matter what the core is about anymore? I open it up. I mean, what do you guys think?
I have to say, when I was 25, I moved away from LA for this very reason. I moved to New York. I lived in New York for 5 years. Up until that moment of my life, I always constantly was reminded, I had gained a lot of weight at that time. All my friends were very thin. We would go to clubs and, I was always constantly reminded that I was the bigger girl, whether it was not necessarily, my friends said anything, but, the men, who would they talk to? The thinner girls. Or they would make, me wait outside the line and other girls would go right into a club, walk up, go right in. It was always at the forefront. And I had to get away from LA for that very reason. And I moved to New York because I thought it was just a more real place to be. And it happened. It actually felt that way. When I got there, I felt a huge difference. And my esteem from the time I lived there to when I came back, it shifted.
Right.
So, being back in LA, thank God I'm older now. And I, have a little bit more wherewithal about who I am and what really matters. But, my 20s were really hard in LA for that very reason, and I think it's still that way, but I just have a little bit more,
And rightfully so, because if you're being judged purely on what's on the outside all the time, and for whatever reason, if that's where you're seeking your validation and affirmation from, and it's not being given to you because it doesn't match up to what the standard is, of course that's going to leave you with this very low sense of self, insecurity. And, at the moment, obviously, the role models of West LA culture are the celebrities. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is particularly in West LA.
Yeah.
Other places too, but particularly here. And they're setting the standards, which everyone is kind of being held to and judged by. And sometimes those standards really don't serve us very well because we look at them and we try to want to have the same look, the same image, the same lifestyle. If we can't attain it, if it doesn't work, we just wander around with this kind of feeling of, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And that I'm not good enough leads to all sorts of problems, which eventually ends up in my office
Right.
in some shape or form.
Right.
Not always, but it adds to it. It's all part of how you're experienced.
I don't think we can also leave behind the economic factor. And here's what I have to say. The more that we have grown to be social media gluttons, via Facebook and especially Instagram. The rise of Instagram, I think, has really perpetuated this because here's what happens. We see these TV stars or reality stars, right? I'm talking about the Real Housewives, especially the Real Housewives of Atlanta, because they are the ones that really first started the trend of having a glam squad, right? You have to have a glam squad that does your hair, your makeup. You live this fabulous life where you continuously go to spas and you have the best trainers and you have the best so that you can have a look. And they always talk about, if you look at a housewife between season 1 and season 5, there's been a huge metamorphosis. They've gone to plastic surgeons. They've gone through rigorous diets. They've really polished their look. It's a huge production value. And everybody else seems to want to follow that because your capital is based and assessed by how many followers you have on Instagram.
Yeah.
And can I just add to that quickly, Alex, that the work on the refinement is all on the outside. No work has been done on the inside. It's all about how you present yourself, how you look, what does your hair look like today, how does your makeup look, how does your so it's the refinement has been purely exterior.
Absolutely. And so, and as you were saying, though, you are not going to see yourself as successful and not have that kind of affirmation until you get to that place where people think of you as a celebrity. I have friends that I went to high school with that their presence on social media is at the level of celebrity. I'm thinking of one girl specifically who is a radio disc jockey, and everything for her has to be a performance on Instagram. She does videos with her riding in a car with her hair blowing back, and there's a specific move that she makes that is her signature move. And all of this is very meticulously orchestrated so that you present an image of the ultimate party person, the ultimate LA individual who is thriving and succeeding. And I think it is very shameful, though, that in the end, we're not looking at the core. We're not looking at the person's heart. We're not looking at their value system. We're not looking at whether they're honest, because in all of this production value, there's a lot of dishonesty. There's a lot of duplicity.
And the self-identity is just lost. Because it's all hiding under all the, all the shenanigans of this, that, how do I look? What do I wear? What does that seem like? So it's lost.
Well, did you guys hear about the Australian teenager who just quit Instagram for that very reason? So she's a blogger. She has an Instagram page.
Interesting.
Her name is Essena O'Neill. She's 18 years old. And she just made this huge proclamation about how everything is fake. Everything is staged.
Wow.
She was crying on her YouTube channel about, just it not being real and, the fact that she gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to promote this image that she really isn't. So she went through and, some of the pictures that had captions on them that represented something that really didn't happen. She put what was really going on in the picture. Like, oh, it took 2 hours to take this picture. I was posing in this way because I felt, uncomfortable with my belly fat. And, so she really had a crisis of conscience and was literally crying to her YouTube followers about this.
Well, that sends a very positive message, I think, particularly for young women who are really looking up to her, going, well, this isn't real. I mean, we're trying to do things which are not real. What we view as beauty in our society and hold, kind of put on a pedestal is not real because it's airbrushed, because this happens. So that is an incredible example and a very brave step in the right direction towards really showing the public that actually, look, this isn't real. And I just want to let you know, FYI.
Right.
I think we definitely have to put out a clarion call to everyone. And for people to realize the Kardashians were at the forefront of a lot of this. I
was going to say that too.
Yeah, right. And
Yes.
Winter has a lot of inside scoop at some level in terms of that family. But suffice it to say this: what we see on television, this idea that it's reality, is a misnomer. Anything that comes to your screen, whether it's your iPad or your home television set, there is a huge staff that produces that end result. And that means that those individuals have makeup artists, they have specialists that make them look a certain way, and it takes hours.
It is not authentic.
It's not authentic. There is a high production value. So what we see is what someone intended for us to see. When you come to someone's home at 7 a.m. and they get out of bed and they have a conversation with you, that is the epitome of real, right? There is
Right.
absolutely no production value. They might have run to the restroom to have gotten some Listerine and some mouthwash.
Hopefully. Let's
Hopefully,
hope.
right?
It's raw.
It's raw.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty. There is no production value. And I think the polar opposite of that is what we see in the various portals of social media. And so all this to say, we are all bound by a human condition that puts us at some level on an even playing field. Where people have an advantage is that they have these squads, these cadres of individuals that help them look a certain way and get to the public. And
Which is
so-
precisely responsible for a lot of our insecurities.
Yeah.
A lot of our insecurities come by the dominant discourse of the culture we live in. And if the dominant discourse of the culture that we're in is, having everything staged and made to look perfect all the time, well, of course we don't match up because it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
But what is realistic is that you are listening to this podcast and that you stuck with us through this very first enterprise. We want to encourage you to continue the conversation with us by going to our Facebook page, which is Ethnically Correct. You may also follow us on Twitter at Ethnic Correct. And we encourage you to subscribe to our podcast in whatever medium you choose to listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much, and we look forward to continuing the conversation on Ethnically Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.